All right, welcome back to another session of NWN podcast. Today we are blessed with Daniel Rabadan from Down with the Most High record label. I've known Daniel ever since I think back in the early 2000s when Daniel contacted me about contributing to the Sarcophago Picture Disc project that I was putting together. And he was nice enough to scan an original photo for me, and that photo happened to have Wagner's personal note on the back, which ended up on the back of the booklet. And yeah, I thought that little touch was very special because it just made it more personal. And ever since then, we've been in touch. He's a crazy diehard fan of similar types of music, extreme black metal of all different types, but especially South American, Eastern European, and just the non-standard European black metal stuff is what we all worship around here. So welcome, Daniel. Do you want to give us some background on what you're up to with Down with the Most High?
Oh, thank you very much, Jessica, for having me. It's really a pleasure. Actually, I've been following the steps of the label of Nuclear War now since the early beginnings. First record I bought, it just actually wasn't from you, but the first record I bought was the Blasphemy live album. And I bought it from Warhammer, which was the label that you co-released their album with. But after seeing the result of the first release, I was blown away, and I kept started buying directly from Nuclear War Now and supporting the label through the years. So up to that moment that the Sarcophago LP came, I was following really closely what you were doing. I was really it has been one of the reference I had always in mind by the time of putting together the label, especially about your working ethos, the treatment you gave to the visuals of the releases. Well, there's many aspects we can discuss on this long discussion. Regarding Sarcophago, what thing is that I remember that you were putting together this reissue. I sent you the photo. Actually, I sent you 2 photos. The live shot with Wagner, which is singing with the mixed style, and he's with this huge upside down cross,
Right.
was signed on the back. Also, another photo which was prior to the in-re photo session, what ended up being on the side B of the picture disc for Die Hard, which was a
Mhm.
photo that I remember when I sent you the photo, you answered me, you replied to the email like 2 minutes later and say, okay, that's going to be the side B for the picture because you never saw that one. I got those back in 1994 from the grindcore singer of the band Rot from
Mhm.
Brazil. He was running a sign back in the day, and he was in contact with Sarcophago. I tried to reach Wagner Antichrist back in those days for the sign I was doing then, but yeah, I never managed. But at least I got those photos that I sent you. One of them is signed, and also I have that already shit with this actually. One the band made Xerox copies, include the lyrics for the Warfare Noise
Mhm.
songs, and that also it's on the booklet that you put together for the in reissue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that photo you contributed is actually from the Warfare Noise session because it doesn't have DD Crazy in the photo. It's not Inri.
Yeah, it's Lepros
Yeah, it's
actually.
Leprous, yeah, who is now the drummer of Torment the Door. So
Okay.
kind of cool that it's coming full circle. I did the licensed Sarcophago picture disc, and then much later, 20 plus years later, I'm working with you know Holocausto and Leprous of Sarcophago and Torment the Door. So
Yeah, it's just curious which kind of twists our respective involvements in the scenes leads us to, you know. You end up working with people that you were worshiping like 25, 30 years ago, and in the end, you ended up doing stuff with them. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's a sign of sticking to your guns, sticking to the kind of music we worship, and to the yeah, this music that has drove us all crazy, has made this of ourselves like a sort kind of lifestyle.
mm.
So yeah, that's really curious.
Yeah, so What have you been up to with Down with the Most High? What latest releases do you have coming out?
Oh, actually, last Friday, it was the official release date for two of the new records. They came on just Saturday and Friday, but well, I have to pick them from the courier myself. They wasn't. That's one of the reasons because this kind of photos I always use for promoting the releases, which are really related to the aesthetics and the concept hasn't been put together yet, and the mockups are online. But maybe by the time this interview will be on the air and available, well, the releases are actually out, are been a while available for a while on pre-order, and this is the Decay, Kaisao, and Cemetery Lights split album, which is called Heralds of the Duat. The Duat is the another world of the world of the dead from the ancient Egypt. Haiti of Regere Sinister, Depravement, Right for Revenge has made this awesome cover for the band. And the guy from Kaisao contacted me like a year ago, and they told me they had this split in the works, and they would like to release it with me. So we have gone with for a vinyl edition first. CD is coming on September. There are two vinyl versions. Three bands. The case has released some really amazing stuff. I think that's some of the most solid material in years. And Kaisao, Cemetery Lights, they are delivering their typical music, but the concept is that the three bands work together on the lyrical, so it's a sort of a split which has consistency about the context. We have put some interesting things like this is on has a papyrus background. Of course, this one is a scan, but we have made the same thing for the inside. Okay, so it's like you look in the reverse, and the limited edition has got a real papyrus, which is silk screen. Okay, this is the real deal. It's hand numbered. All copies. This just comes with for the limited edition, which comes with a. This is like a sandstone, a marble vinyl. And besides that, all copies, both the regular edition and the ordinary edition, comes with this fold-out lyric insert, which is huge. And I pushed the band a little further in terms of the aesthetics of the band and about the concept. So we started discussing things. I say, why don't we do some additional drawings and have these three hieroglyphic cartouche with each one of the names of the band, translated into ancient Egypt. So it has been like a short kind of collective job because guy from Kaixao just made came with the translations, and Dan or from Cemetery Lights made all these liner notes, okay, providing context, and so he had the lyrics printed on a sturdy paper. So it was that's about the split. And this one is a split release with Zombie Dance from Belgium. This is the Nocturne de Manto demos. It's a compilation of both live recordings, which are the only demos the band ever released. Second one is not even on YouTube up to this day. So this is really, really rare stuff. So you can see here the logo of Zombie Dance, here our logo. Taufik of Zombie Dance has been reaching the band for a long time, and he dropped the idea because it was impossible for him to get along and to get a full permission from them. I made my movement. I contacted Anti-Christian Pervert, which was the singer of the band, through Facebook, got his blessings to do the record. So in this case, we have done something more down to earth in terms of packaging, It's 350 grams as the other LP cardboard jacket. Quite is important as usual. And we have come with two inserts, which I haven't brought. I left the office. They are not here, okay? But this comes with an A3 side poster, which is black and white, which has the cover, and a 4 pages insert with liner notes which has been written by Taufik, with the all photos which are known to this release Yeah, both of these came together last Friday, and there's more stuff in the works, like the Basaksasa from Germany compilation, which is features the demo, their song, both demos, songs from the 7-inch, and also two rehearsal tracks that have never been released before on vinyl. So this also came last month, which is the Oppositor cassette EP. This is a band from Zaragoza, it's Midwest Spain. I'm releasing this next year on vinyl, but we first wanted to make of this a tape release. This is really kind of it's not chaotic, but it's cacophonic, some kind of black death metal. You can see there the influences of the likes of Titan Blood or Proclamation, but with a really twisted touch. It's not like a clone.
Mhm.
And there's a shitload more of stuff that is going to happen during the next months.
Very nice. Sounds like you've been busy.
Yeah, always. I can, well, compared to your schedule, I always say that
Yeah.
we are low profile. But yeah, that's a lot of work. Putting all these kind of things together is like a lot of work. I've been doing the label full time for the last 2 years, because prior to that it was like a hobby. It went on hold for different reasons. We can talk about that later. But the thing is that once you get into it full time, you realize that you are very much learning as you go.
Yeah.
Maybe you have some expertise on things you have done previously because of the works you have. I've been working on as a digital freelancer, digital marketing for the last 8 years before quitting and concentrating full time on the label. I thought I had skills about project management, but when you run a label and you are doing pretty much everything your own, it's like yeah, it's challenging, well, you will know that, but it's really challenging and it's really busy, and especially if you took care deeply into the details, that's still to work for sure, but rewarding on the other hand.
Yeah, it's like juggling multiple things at the same time and keeping everything up in the air, and then you have to make sure that the bills are paid. It's a lot of work to do it. Yeah, like you, I also quit my day job last year, and it's rewarding to just do the record label, but it's also a big challenge to pay all the bills at the same time. So to
Yeah,
anyone
absolutely.
out there thinking about quitting their day job, just make sure that you're at a place where you can sustain your business, without compromise. I think that's the real key too. Like it might be easy and it might be tempting to, and, and just, I don't know, compromise and do something you don't really want for the sake of earning money, especially in this music scene where you see trends come and go. But I really, yeah, I get inspired by record labels like you because you stick to your gun and you do what you want only. Who's gonna reissue that record you're doing with Zombie Dance except you and Tawfiq? I'm
Yeah.
also doing a split release with Tawfiq as well, Chemical Death. And
Yeah, he told me
yeah. So I mean, there are only a handful of record labels out there in the scene that are sticking to their guns and just doing what they want. A lot of labels will go the bigger label route and kind of expand outward and make it more commercial. And I think, the few of us, Life Eternal, you, Iron Bonehead, I don't know, Zombie Dance, few others out there doing, whatever they want to do. Agena, Invictus, Iron Tyrant. These are the labels that I really look forward to seeing new releases on, because I know that it comes from some internal desire to put this music out there. So I think we have to make sure that that flame never gets distinguished, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that all of us are in a way, and not only if you are running a label, but if you are a true devote of the underground, even if you are just purchasing music and not doing anything else, But if you are really devoted to that, we are a sort kind of custodians and keepers of this legacy somehow. The fact that when you are doing it from the heart, um, makes it even more difficult, especially if you are doing a record label full time, because as you say, you have to pay bills and you have to face a lot of things that from the outside it seems like the ideal job, but in the end you are running a business. And running a business for underground music and with the trends coming and going, as you say, I remember, I've been, for example, speaking about Nuclear War now, I've been following the label forever, which is nearly 25 years. And I have seen some bands which were really, really hype back in the day, in terms of popularity. Not saying that they were trendy, but they got a hype. And the same hype they experience, it went away. Music moves in cycles, and I always say that I feel like it's like a generational kind of thing. Most of the people gets into music and stays into it for what, 5, 8, 10 years the max. Then another round of people gets into the wheel. Some of them stick. The most part of it go away. Maybe some of them will reconnect sooner or later. But when these changes start to happen, you see that the popularity of of certain bands or stuff that has been popular or has been uh, goes away. It simply flips and it's like it's challenging for a label, because if you want to stick releasing the kind of music you like, you will see that at a certain point the stuff you are putting out maybe overnight is not interesting all the necessary people for you to sustain, to have a sustainable business from a standpoint. I know what I mean. But on the other hand, I just want to make release the music I like. For example, Crucifixation, which is this band from New Jersey. They have recorded a new album, which is coming. Well, the first debut album, which is coming out next month. And especially because with reissues, you can always have the fact of nostalgia. Playing that thing, which is maybe you will appeal to a certain kind of people. There's people like when people like all these collectors from the new wave of British heavy metal collects everything related. If you are popping up a band from which is which is unknown, on little is known, but maybe it can appeal to a certain niche of people. But if you are trying to grab the attention of people by releasing and supporting new bands, that's more and more challenging. And especially in the case of certain kind of bands which are not so active these days on social media, which is something I respect as a label. That's something there's no point that you are not working that road. That's something you have to do in order to promote your stuff. But for bands that are sticking to the old traditions, just tricky. I heard about some bands, or speak to some bands speaking me about like the only promotion they can do is flyers or things that say, man, that's not gonna work anymore. Unfortunately, I would love to live in the old days, but that's not how it works.
Yeah, no, it's. I don't think it's compromised to use digital media to promote your stuff. Some people will just stick to flyers and zines, and that's cool. I think Witchcraft does a lot of their promotion through um, printed media,
Hmm.
but they have high enough profile at this point, and other record labels and people are spreading their information now. And I think they're on a different level as well. I mean, they're so prolific, and they put out so much, rehearsal demos, and they spread so many flyers that actually, in their case, maybe the old school way sort of worked, because they've done it for so long. But at the same time, I think you have to have some level of digital presence so that the younger generation who grew up listening to YouTube videos or Bandcamp or whatever, know how to get your stuff and listen to them, because otherwise they won't buy the physical media. If they don't hear it, they don't know about it, they probably won't buy your stuff. And that's just how the reality is these days, you know.
Yes, absolutely. I think that the main thing for us as label is what's going to happen in 10 years, and some of the people that is buying stuff from Nuclear War Now or wherever the labels you have been mentioned before, which are absolutely among my favorites. For example, a band like Iron Pegasus as well, you know. Many people will be 60 years in a few years, or even more. I don't see like generational kind of people get jumping into the whole thing. And
Mhm.
maybe, of course, digital presence is everything these days, because even the oldest people, they are not, to be honest, they are not writing people letters anymore for years. So even flyers today, who is spreading flyers mostly? We are among the distros. You send me flyers, I send you the flyers. We spread the flyers of each other's distro in our orders, but it's not like in the 90s or the early 2000s when you were receiving a letter and it was what you were expecting as much as the letter itself or the music that was coming together with it for the flyers, because that's where your source of information. I think I have nothing about digital media. I told you before, I've been working as a freelancer and a consultant, putting out the strategies for brands and businesses. Because I studied journalism, I made different stuff during my life, but I came back to when I decided to work on my own full time, not with a record label, but by myself. Later on, I realized that I had to reconnect with music somehow, because it was like something that I was missing the creative aspect of all that. But I think those are the tools you have. When I remember when PayPal just popped up, I thought, fans, I have no sent money again into a letter, which was like a painful or money orders that took forever. It was like it was safe, it was fast. So I you can remember with nostalgia about that way of transferring money. But technology has made a lot of things easier for everybody. On the other hand, you are competing with everybody. There is like this huge window where we are all trying to catch everybody's attention. Um, it's not like you are going to grab people by the neck until you have to like this, because people will decide what's what they like or don't. But you need that digital presence. And for example, in the case of bands like Witchcraft, for example, yes, both of us, we work with them. They have a sort kind of a status. They've been building for more than 15 years. They started as of Doom. They later on switched to Black Fist, then Witchcraft. So the fact of being involved, even if those are different incarnations, and even if they don't consider like the same kind of band, helps them to have like a following and a status. So it's a different thing. I think they are perceived in a different way.
Right. So I think you touched on a very interesting point. With digital media and digital recording and just the ease of production these days, there are more bands, more record labels, more distribution companies, and obviously more competition in the world to sell our stuff. What are you doing differently to distinguish Down with the Most High from the rest?
I think quality is one of the most important things. The record label actually started like a merch company, because the first thing I did, or first thing people may start in getting noticed about what I was doing, was this embroidered patches I have been doing for quite a while on fox leather. The first one was the Awatane patch. It wasn't on leather, but I reached a company which produced them in Europe. I always try to work with. That's also a part of the ethos of the label. This day is to work with as many companies from my country as I can. It's not that I am an nationalist, or chauvinist, But I think that more than ever, you have to support your local economy. That's what that's really important for me, because it goes back to the cycle of it's not like I'm a political or social person. I have really a political kind of view, but it is like, let's say, like a synergy you depend on. On the other hand, that allows me to have a close control about the quality of the stat I'm doing. It's like, for example, when I was speaking about this papyrus, silk screen papyrus I've
Mhm.
done, first thing I made, I reached different suppliers. I went and bought physical copies of papyrus. I reached another supplier which had on the site that I could fit into a record. I went to the silk screen workshop, one of the two I work with, and
Mhm.
we made a test, because we didn't know that's going to work on such a surface. Um, it's not like I'm sending stuff over and get it back produced into a box. That's important for me. Even I'm pressing the records here in Spain. I don't know yet the factory, but it does a 4 hour drive. So that's really important for me. I also taking a lot of care about the everything related to a record. Now, for example, in the case of the speed, you know, for decades, I saw one cemetery lights. I we were looking for a papyrus for the background, and the image, the licensing, it was like insane. The price was insane. So I went, bought a piece, made a scan out of it. We made the record, and I try to make the records as consistent as they are in every single detail. That's I also push a lot of the bands limits, in order to, it's not, I like to say that it's like a collective kind of work. In the case, for example, of the retrospectives, with anthological records, like we did this record last year, which is the Ascaroth, this is one of the first bands from Spain, black metal bands from Spain.
Mhm.
This is, I think, this was the second EP that was released in Spain on CD, and we made the vinyl version last year. And we made like a 20 booklet with 16 pages and a 3,000 word essay. With what we had 2 interviews with the band by Zoom. I had the help, because I love to write all this kind of stuff, but I don't have the time to make everything myself anymore. So a friend from, which is called Ricard from the band Proscrito, they put an album on through Iron Maiden some years ago. He's responsible for the scatology scene. Some people may be aware of. We made like this huge booklet providing a lot of facts, connections, not only about the story of the band, but about in the context of the years the records were released. So quality, context, being consistent, not, for example, borrowing images from somewhere else in order to make a record. Quality control. That's all things that are important for me. Also providing a strong narrative when it comes to the social media stuff. We always I blame myself sometimes, because all the work involved that involves making all these photo sessions that I have something to do with the record. Yes, but that's my way. It's like I put records the way I would like to get them from other labels. It's like I would say, I've been expecting releases for so long that were hype, that were a total disappointment when you get them. On the other hand, those are the ones that are like awesome. For example, I can think of the Order from Chaos box that you made years ago. I remember them being a totally underrated band. I remember their CDs were being sold for €1 for years on the Osmos Productions. And when you made that reissue, you made justice to them. I thought, it was so strong. It has everything, and that's the kind of stuff I like to bring to people. I want to reward people. They support with quality stuff, and sales are a reward. But when people get back to you and tell, Okay, I am impressed about the nuances of this kind of thing, of this detail you have made here. That's the most rewarding part for me.
Yeah, I think what separates your label from the rest is that it's not just the releases, but everything from the marketing pictures that you take to the writing that you add to each description, and even the way that you package your products in the plastic. For example, the Mystifier patch you did came with a backing cardboard
Yeah,
with printed artwork on it, and then the patch was, on there, and it was all in this, nice bag. And when you take it out, it almost looks like something you don't want to even open because it's so nice, So that level of attention to detail is always lacking now. It reminds me of the anal retentiveness of Japanese records from the 70s and 80s, where everything was perfect, from the
yeah,
obi design to the quality of the vinyl to the tip-on jackets to translated lyrics on the insert and the biography. There was a different level of attention to detail, and that's where I take a lot of my cues as well. Just being a Japanese immigrant to the US, I kind of brought that over with me. So I see that level. I'm not sure if that was your reference point, but I see that kind of attention to detail in what you do. And that's very inspiring for me because I think a lot of labels just kind of slap shit together, and I'm guilty of that as well because I don't have as much time to take nice photographs and do the online promotion with long text. Sometimes I'll just write the text myself and it's very brief and it doesn't always do the band justice. My friend Jason used to write these really long,
yeah.
elaborate descriptions that were very informative. But as we get older, we have family, we have kids, we have less and less time. So he doesn't have as much time to contribute to that kind of text. Although he just did one for me for Oxblood, a punk band that I'm working with, and that turned out great. But yeah, you seem to put that level of attention to detail and effort into every aspect of your record label, and I think that's what separates it from the rest.
Yeah, for me, it's like a sort kind of overall experience, you know. I was grown in the mystique of the 80s. I started listening to metal in 1987 when I was 12. I'm turning 49 next week. For the first 5 years, I didn't listen much more than heavy metal. You know, I listened to some Slayer, Creator, Metallica, but you know, black and death metal was like, for example, Sepultura for me was like a wall, you know. But something switched all of a sudden, and it switched with the Injury of Sarcophago. Actually, I was listening to starting to get into Sepultura, but the moment I listened to Injury, it was like no turning point. But all this mystic pre-internet era when you had to, you know, you imagine you imagine in your head how bands will be. And you didn't imagine any in street clothes. You were seeing Sarcophago or even the bands from Norway back in the early 90s, you know. If you are not familiar with what they were doing before, and the amount of photos were not a click away like today. You could take years to see a photo of Darkthrone in 1992 on their street clothes. You know, even if you got into the scene like 2 years later, not you were in 1991, you went in 1993 when you. So I try to keep and encapsulate the essence of that mystique on what I do. So it's like there is no so much like behind the scenes or making of the kind of things, you know. Maybe I can making of video to put in value, to give value to some artisan work that has been done for a lease or for a certain kind of technique we are using for a T-shirt or whatever, or maybe how we put together our style when doing events. But for me, trying to have like this full cycle, which is like a 360 kind of experience from start to finish. And if you can stick to that, I'm an adult, of course. I'm not a child anymore. But in my head, I want to live this music like in the pre-internet days. I have been always since I was a kid. I always had like a vivid imagination. I spent a lot of time on my own. It wasn't like I was a shy kind of guy. I was social, but I always had a lot of interior life. That's what we call it in Spain. So it made my imagination being fertile. Truth being said, I never explored that so much during my work life. I studied journalism. I worked for technological companies for 2 years in their marketing areas. This was on the bubble of the internet era. So it all exploded. I lost my job. So I went back to work with my family. My family has the business is currently run by my brother, but they work on interior design and providing services for interior design, upholstery, curtain, tailoring, but it's really high end and really custom stuff. So I spent my youth working summers, working during university days, working on weekends. So that also gave me an ethos when it comes to have a working ethics. At the same time, it gave me a full view about everything related to the detail. That's something that it was like. I mean, I think you were putting things on top of the top, but I was inspired my creativity much more than doing releasing signs back in the 90s, doing some label, because I had a label which released a couple of demos in the 90s, and doing a lot of interviews for major metal magazines here in Spain for a while. But when I reconnected with myself and I was doing working with clients in digital marketing, and I was selling their services and I was selling their products, and it was like I always was trying to give to give to their business the deepest of me. It was like I was a part of their team, but it wasn't. Then the experience was never complete. I never achieved what you want. You can. So I say, okay, I have to do something that, and I was starting thinking about that. This in digital in marketing, there is this figure in persona. You say, which are your personal strengths? So I started thinking about, say, okay, why do you come bring together the label? Because it was on hiatus for a while, and do the things the way you like, the way you envision. Because on the back of my head, these things has all been like that. I remember the first time I had a Japanese LP on my hands. My parents went to England, I think it was in 1990, to London, and I wrote then a list of bootlegs I saw in a magazine about Maiden, Iron Maiden, because they are my favorite band ever. One of the bootlegs was called "A Strange in a Strange Land," but it was a bootleg. And my parents brought me a single. It was a maxi single from Japan. The edition is like merging the wasted years B-sides with the songs from the Strange in a Stranger Land. But all the extras the record came with was like an eye-opening moment. The record is a 12-inch, but the name of the Iron Maiden logo and the name of the record is engraved on the outer grooves of the record. The lyrics, the poster, the OV, all these kind of things started to bring in myself something. It was like a spark of imagination. After years of record collecting, things from that when they were done really well. Japan is a really good example, as you say. Yeah, that's just been really, really inspiring. And on the other hand, prior to that, labels from the 90s in the beginning, Not Good Alegria even if they were releasing mostly CDs, but the way they were doing their records back then was something I always loved. And also, yeah, I'm a huge Kiss fan, despite how much I like stream music. When it comes to, for example, to Japanese releases, everything many of the things they have done through the years have been truly amazing. The records, the Kiss records from the 70s are pretty much that. All the extras they came with. So all in all, this has been really, really inspiring for me.
Yeah. Did you so I think we forgot to mention earlier that you're located in Spain,
Yeah,
and that
agreed.
should be mentioned. And what was the scene like in the 80s and 90s in Spain? It never really produced that many bands over the years that I can remember that made it big.
Yeah, you are right. Thing with Spain is that everything here came really, really late. Okay, it's like there was always a gap of time, an important really gap of time between with what's being produced or with what's hype at the moment, okay, or the new trends, um, when bands starting to chasing trends. Okay, not saying copycat, but when local bands were starting to do stuff. Why this happened? You could say that Spain went through a dictatorship for nearly 40 years. There was a civil war in 1939. We lasted for 3 years, and it ended up with a fascist regime ruling their country for 4 years. Of course, it had an impact on how things develop. But on the other hand, if you consider how, for example, many countries from Eastern Europe also went through dictatorships, or even countries from Latin America went through that, bands like Sarcófago or Sepultura were pretty much chasing what Sodom, Destruction, Celtic Frost, Hellhammer were doing.
Mhm.
1, 2 years later, maximum. In the case of Spain, for example, first two thrash metal records were released in 1988 and 1899 and 1989. So that can give you a clue about how late
Mhm.
Spain came to everything. So, on the other hand, Spain is a country opposed, for example, to which happens with Latin America with bands. Yeah, some bands sang in Spanish, but for here, people, most of Spaniards have a problem learning languages. It's changing now, but for many years, people like to have music that they could sing along and they could understand the lyrics. So I think all these kind of things affect pretty much to the scene. By the time death metal started, most of the bands that were starting playing death metal, yeah, there were some bands in the early 90s, but not so many. So by the time most of the death metal bands were playing death metal, black metal was the next big thing, So it was like always this
Mhm.
functional kind of timeline. I think that played an inferred a major role. On the other hand, another of the things that was crucial, in my opinion, was the victimism kind of feeling. It's easier. That's something I hate about my country. You know, is that because we are Spanish, we don't grab the attention we deserve.
Mhm.
Okay, that's stupid because you have, for example, you think of or for example, what our band like Rotting Christ or Mortuary Rape achieved in Italy or Greece was totally different. Even Municipal, if they or from Portugal, even if they of course were transitioning quite fast into well, a much more accessible kind of music. But those bands weren't thinking that they weren't signed because they were from Spain. This always this feeling. This I think that was a mantra. I think the bands that broke that mantra were, in the case when it came to black and death metal, were Proclamation, Tate and Blood. And it was simply because they couldn't care less about what anybody thought about them. They just had a vision about what they do, what they wanted to do, and they wanted to achieve. And I think that was a transitional moment. Of course, you have some other bands from death metal that over the years have had the cool and so on. But when it comes to more underground kind of stuff like this, that's one of the reasons, because the scene has never been so strong here.
Yeah. In the 80s, you had bands like Angeles del
El
Inferno.
Infierno,
Yeah.
yes.
And Panzer, all those bands got reissued in Mexico. So they're pretty big in Mexico.
Oh,
And
actually, all those bands were traditional heavy metal bands,
right.
you know. You had Barón Rojo, which were the biggest Spanish
Oh,
metal band ever, and or Obús, which are those two were like the biggest ones.
yeah.
Ángeles del Infierno was was the third band maybe in terms of popularity. Some of those bands were really huge in Spain. Uh, the thing is that also the circuit in Spain is like it's like a toxic kind of thing, you know, for when it comes to touring, for bigger bands, okay. But I think that something of this also permeated to the underground, and I'll tell you why. Thing is that most of those bands that were really big in Spain, the country was a fucking mess in the early 80s. Okay, after 30 years of dictatorship, I don't say that in terms of infrastructures and everything like that. I'm not saying that I'm a political person, so don't take me wrong. I'm telling historical facts. But in terms of infrastructures, you know, roads and so on, moving from one city to another was like a fucking nightmare. You know, so it made an impact even for bands touring within the country, and they tour. But most of the time, in Spain, has Madrid and Barcelona the biggest cities. The north part of Spain, the Basque Country, was always big in terms of support for music. For example, when some tours. You could have this Clash of the Titan tour from the early 90s with Slayer, Megadeth, Suicide Tendencies, and Testament. And we are speaking about what, 1990? It just played in Barcelona, Basque Country, but never reached Madrid, which is the biggest city in the whole country, and it's the capital of the country. So it can give you a clue about how things here are. And on the other hand, many of the bands here, like Panther, all these bands, were depending so much about getting higher by councils, popular holidays, you know, all these kind of public events that were paid by public money. So it wasn't like they were putting their own tours themselves, you know. They were playing, but they were playing certain shows, festivals, but the main net or income for them was playing for public mayors, councils, you know, wherever. When you have these kind of holidays, and I think in the end, that affected quite a lot. Also, most of the bands from that time were signed to the same label, which was Zafiro Records, and Zafiro Records was an organization which was run a record label which, curiously enough, was run by the Opus Dei, which is a really strong religious organization here in Spain. They were putting the money, but it was like a monopoly. Okay, so certain bands had the chance of, for example, like Barón Rojo, they were offered to play in the States, opening for AC/DC on the for those about to rock tour in 1984, and they will have to pay like 4 million pesetas from back then, which was a lot of money. Okay, you will buy like 4 flats by then, but that would have make a big difference for them, you know. And they were selling records. They were selling like 100,000 records for per album, which was a lot. And I tell you for a fact, metal was really huge here back then, but tape trading was 3 times bigger. You know, so if all those bands will have sold their records, the people were listening or play trading back then, or home dubbing, they could have been more huge. But yeah, the truth being said is that the Spanish scene doesn't have that much classic stuff, to say it so.
Do you think that these bands were producing music for the domestic market in Spain for the most
Yeah,
part? Because
absolutely.
I mean, I didn't find out about most of these bands until early 2000s, you know, like they just didn't, it was not very well distributed. So I couldn't go to the record store and find this stuff. It wasn't until the internet age that I could find out about some of these bands.
Yeah, because those records, thing is that yeah, most of the Zafiro Records, which was this record label, were licensing many of their stuff to records in Latin America because and some, for example, Barón Rojo played some shows over there back in the 80s. But try to think about the infrastructures about touring South America in the 80s. No, it's not like today. It was even more difficult. It was like putting a challenge on top of a challenge because if your second market could be South America and it is already difficult through your own country, try to imagine to go to South America back in the 90s. Um, there's also a lot of horror stories about managers that run away with money and tours that got canceled last minute. On the other hand, not many of those bands sung in English. The only band that made the try out was Barón Rojo with their second record, which was recorded both in Spanish and English. And the record was some of those records were also issued both by Camouflage records in the UK, and also, for example, Mausoleum records from Belgium released some of this stuff. For example, in the case of Baron Rojo, the record was even issued in Japan. There is a Japanese version of it, which is the English version. So you have the English because they record the album once and they make like two versions, one sung in Spanish, one sung in English. Okay, they even played in Reading Festival, but I think that the lack of support by the label, since they didn't have like really strong image, and it's not like today because if even yeah, they were very focused on the Spanish market. I think everything. I don't know if it was a cultural thing. It was lack I think it's cultural thing, kind of lack of resources, sticking to what is easier for you. It's difficult to say on a foreign language when you can pronounce properly. Because in the case of the Barón Rojo album, the lyrics were written and they were like edited or reviewed by Bruce Dickinson, which by the time because that record was recorded at Ian Gillan from Deep Purple Studios. Bruce Dickinson was orbitating around them. There's even some live footage of. No, there's not footage. There's photos of Bruce Dickinson performing with Baron Rojo during one of the shows in the Marquee. I think if you see, for example, the live from Hammersmith video from Iron Maiden, the arm band with spikes that he's wearing was a gift from the singer of Baron Rojo, but it wasn't go beyond that. They were really focused on the metal market. I think it was a theme from the label, a theme from the bands. I think it was a mixture of everything. Yeah, but they never broke up because of that. They never broke in bigger markets because of that.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know too many bands from Spain. You know, I'm trying to think back. I have a compilation. You probably know this compilation. It has like a bullfighter on the cover, and it has a couple of regular thrash bands, but then there's one band called Necromancy on there that's kind of more death, like early death metal sounding. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think of late 80s, early 90s, death or death thrash bands, and I can't think of many.
Yeah, there were many. The first record that were starting record label was starting doing something abroad was Drowned, run by Dave Rotten.
Yeah.
He released the first Demigod album and released the first two death metal albums released ever in Spain from Necrophiliac. Necrophiliac was one of probably the first death metal band ever, along with Aggressor. Aggressor were more like a death thrash kind of band. Aggressor were from Valencia, and they were rather unknown. It was Alex of Heresy Studio, which is doing work today. Well, he's doing the stuff for Down with the Most High. He's working for Agna, for Invictus, and so that. He had a label a few years ago, which was called Black Mass, and he reissued the Aggressor demo from the 80s. It was really cool stuff, but it was even really unknown here. Yeah, you have a lot of bands from the 90s, and the scene was pop up with bands, black metal, death metal bands, but most of them didn't reach international attention, with the exception of the first death metal bands that were released by Drowned, both also on their demo 7-inch series. Yeah, you can name that many. Later on, there are bands that made a name by themselves, working their asses off. But I always thought it was more a thing of themselves than being on a certain record label.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the first Spanish band that I can recall is maybe Primigenium, Sergio's band. Uh,
Yeah.
when I started buying black metal CDs in the 90s, I think that's one of the first ones I bought because it was released by Full Moon Productions. And
Yeah, it was another example of a band that I know Sergio for 30 years. Actually, we are partners in crime because we are promoting this extreme metal record fair that happens in Spain, in Madrid, twice a year. Sergio has been doing that for 10 years, but I've been attending for the last couple of years since I revamped the label, setting up an stall there, and I offer him to help to make the record fair grow. We are actually working together on the next edition. But yes, he has been involved in Primigenium back then. I also played in a band during those days called Sarathorn. I started with them in 1995. They were already from the same time that Primigenium. But the thing is, Primigenium released their album on Full Moon Productions. Yeah, it was the example of a band that didn't thought so much about. They had the mentality of not saying, "Okay, we are Spanish, we are not going to get signed." They managed to get a record deal. They saw a seat over there. And now you, for example, had all these bands, for example, Natgul, which is also is being released by Sergio now. It's also reissuing the demos. Yeah, there's a plethora of demos from that era, but most of them are not unknown outside. And when it comes to records, barely any bands from the era got a record deal out of Spain.
yeah, I mean, with Primigenium, actually, I guess they did another record or CD on Wall Rags, and they were, they
It
were.
was a reissue of the demo. It was a
Yeah.
reissue of the demo, and I think they did like an EP on Animal Life
Oh,
years
right.
later
That was a bit later. Yeah.
called Intolerance.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember all the Spanish metal that I bought in the 90s, and I think those might have been the first two that I bought.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe you were buying them because they were released by labels from overseas. Because the other thing is that record labels from Spain, they took them a while to get professional, to be professional. It's been one other of the things that has been like a mantra. Mm, Running a label full time is difficult, but how many labels which are hobby for many people has reached worldwide attention within the years. I can name tons of them, but in the case of Spain, it was like once again I can tell you what was wrong with that, but it took us years to took off from that position on the back of the queue.
Yeah. So what do you got cooking up right now in terms of releases?
Oof, I have the Basaksasa compilation. I was approached by the band to do this because 2 years, I think, when Catacomb Cult, the previous album, not the last one, but the previous album was released, I wanted to do a tape edition, but Patrick told me that it was already being cooked. So they approached me to do to do this, and I really like what they do. So it was like a good opportunity to put together all this music, which has been available. You even reissue one of the demos, and we are doing some really nice extra packaging for the limited edition of the record with some extra artwork. We're working on it's already on the press. It should be out in late after the summer. I'm working. I showed you before the Asgaroth EP. Okay, this one comes with a demo, but after this EP came, they released an album. Okay, I'm reissuing the first album. This is more this is a bit different stuff that what I normally do with Down with the Most High, because it's more like kind of symphonic death metal from the 90s. But I had a strong relation with the band, or actually a long connection with them, because when they released this, the first black metal record label in Spain was called New Gotia. Okay, so they did this album, this EP. They released in 1996, the Atman album, which was another black metal band from Barcelona, and the EP from my band Sarathorn back then. So all which was released actually like in 1996. So when they did this, the layout was a fucking mess. Okay. And when we did the layout for the Sarathon demo for the EP, I didn't make myself, because back then almost nobody has a Mac at their house. You have to go to a designer, professional designer, which were insanely expensive. But I was really adamant to the designer about what we wanted. So I gave them lots of notes, and so the band helped me, asked me to do the layout here in Spain, in Madrid, or to take care of it. So I reconnected with them last year and asked them to do the vinyl version, because I still have all the files from 20 plus 7 years later. The Crucifixion album is also on the works. Well, it's almost finished. It's just go to press. Mythical, which I made a compilation last year on cassette, is a band which doesn't want to unveil where they are from, but it's I was approached by them like a couple of years ago, when I listened to the demos and that epic kind of sound, which sounds like a mix of Apsu with the really old Greek scene, the passage to Arturo, Rotting Christ days, or the Barathron demo days. Yes, this black thrashing Apsu kind of stuff mixed with the some epic moments of blood, fire, death. That also has been in the work for the band is taking his time to finish the thing. But the record is finished, but I need the to fit the mixing. But that's one I'm particularly excited about. I'm also reissuing the Interfectum demo. I made a reissue on cassette many years ago, but it was a band from southwest Spain, and that they made just one demo in the blasphemy, beheaded, proclamation style. I want to make a vinyl reissue of it this year. And there is also some stuff I can unveil now that is happening, and also working on a lot of merchandise. There's a couple of leather patches that are coming out. One of them, people is gonna freak out because of the band. That is some merchandise also that is happening with for let's say, for the Bastaxasa compilation. And also I'm working a lot on events here in Spain. I told you about this record fair we are putting together in Madrid. I don't know when you are going to release this, but we are going to announce that. But the record fair now is happening in a big hall. It's like a concert hall. Last time we had like 20 vendors from all over Spain, from thrash, black, death, grind music, anything that you call. I hate the term extreme metal, but that's a way to tag how the record fair orbitates about. And this also is taking me a lot of time today to put this together and to promote that, because I'm taking part of the promotion. Sergio from Black Seed is taking part of some of the logistics. We have people working on the production kind of things. Well, you run a festival yourself, you know that you have to reach other people to do certain tasks. Otherwise, it's really impossible. You have to rely on the expertise of other people. I'm also doing a lot of festivals, record fairs here in Spain. So I keep myself busy working like non-stop on releases, and I have ideas for releases next year. But I have to confirm with the bands first if we make public things, And there's stuff I've been working like for 4 years, and that's been in the making. And well, it's like a long process, but big things should happen probably by the end of the year or early next year.
Yeah. So I was thinking we're about the same age. I'm 48, you're 49. And sometimes I wonder what keeps us going. It's not just the need to pay bills, because if that was the case, we could just work regular jobs and it'll be much easier. But yeah, what keeps you going?
Well, what kept me going is, first of all, I decided 10 years ago I didn't want to work for nobody but myself. Okay, I could have clients, I have customers now who purchase stuff from me, but doing things on my own, that's really, really important for me. I started listening to this kind of music when I was 12, metal, and you could say it's lifestyle somehow, which on the other hand doesn't mean I am dysfunctional, because I have know so much people. I had regular jobs. I commit to my obligations, but there is something that I can get rid of, and I don't even intend that, but it's something that is, you have an attachment to something. I was asked in another interview months ago what caught me about this music, and I think uh, I simply found my place. I always have a fascination for the dark and for the cult. I know it sounds cliche, but that's certain. I have to go through some old school notebooks and things like that. But I remember about a drawing I made with 10 years about a concentration camp, which could be the amateur cover from Campo de Exterminio from the Holocaust, myself. If I find that, I'm going to put that on the down with most high socials. So I always had this sort kind of morbid fascination about certain murder, things like that. Black and death metal fits in that category pretty much. All the things I hate about metal in general today, it is that it has become Disney. It's not something that is perceived as dangerous anymore. People wants to be accepted. I don't need to be accepted anymore. I spend so many times. You have been working on corporate environments. I've been working for clients. I've been working for. Of course, you have to pay your bills, but there is a point of no return. You say, okay, fuck off. I'm not gonna take this anymore. If I have to do a certain point because I will have another chance, I know I can adapt. But as long as I can, that's for sure main dose of adrenaline and to do things today. Besides music, of course, because that's a personal kind of thing. On the other hand, this music still fascinates me up to this day. You know, I can listen to you go through phases that you listen to bands more than others, but there are bands that stick with you for your entire life.
Hmm.
When I found metal at an age of 12, it was like it is. On the other hand, the other thing that was really important for me. Sorry, I don't know if can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, yeah. It sounds slightly
Okay.
different. It sounds like almost the speaker changed or something. Now
Yeah.
you.
No. Yeah. It turned it off. Sorry, for whatever the reason. So it shoot me like a globe when I came into metal. But by the time I discovered black and death metal, you know, and I started watching about the aesthetics, the message, everything like that, it was like it, that's something it's hard to describe for people who is not into this, you know, because I think it's a way of channel that nature that we all have within us. Of course, that's something that maybe you carry out in your normal life, unless you are, for example, in a conflict now, in a war, for example. No, that's something maybe if you are, if you are you're not that, it's not like you are a sociopath, but that's something that's you don't deny your dark nature.
Right.
And I think this music is something that's one of the reasons I have an attachment about that. Also, all the creative aspects that running a label allows me to do, it's something really important because looking at my background, of course, we all will have done a lot of things different in our lives. I will took a lot of decisions different. Not that I regret many of them, but some of them is like I you know, when I was doing science in the 90s, and I was doing demos, and I was interviewing bands in the late 90s or early 2000s for big magazines here in Spain, I could have the chance to, not that I was offered for anything, but it would have been more brave. Maybe if I would have chased things, I could have started working on all this much earlier. On the other hand, you are thought that the only way to go is this way, the straight way, no, and you want to pay the bills, and you don't want to take risks. But you know, maybe I thought it's a no or never kind of thing for me. Um, Exploring all these creative aspect kind of things, and I was telling you, doing the even prior to the record, doing the conception and thinking about how are you going to do, because by the time I'm writing the text for the socials, I'm exhausted about that. I've been going through it too much, and I so thoughtful about it. Most of the time it's like I just want to finish this, okay? But the moment I start working on it, it's not that I get tired, but I am so intense about the whole process that in the end, sometimes it can be really mentally consuming. But enjoying the ride of doing this whole thing from scratch, from contacting the label, going through like last year when I did the Garage reissue. Um, Not even Usurper had anything of the stuff. I have to approach Goat Vomit singer about the demos and stuff he had. You know, I know that you should be familiar with the feeling of that's if you love this music, it's an incredible reward. It's like you can aspire to much more than that because it gives you goosebumps through your spine.
I
And yeah, and
think the process sometimes is more important than, the final product. I mean, obviously, the final product is what you present to the world, but for us dealing with the production side, for me at least, I enjoy the process from, contacting the band, getting the audio, even if they don't have it, you search your own collection or you search other people's collection. You get that, you get it mastered, you transferred, like just recently I had to get a 1/4 inch reel transferred. And not many places around here in the US actually can transfer 1/4 inch reels anymore. So I had to search around, and finally I found one in California. I had to send it in. The whole process takes a while, but when it starts to come together and starts to gain momentum, there is a level of excitement because you're creating something
Absolutely.
um, from nothing. Before you got involved, there was nothing, and then you're creating. I think human nature is such that we either procreate, create babies, or you create art. And people who don't do either of those things, I think, end up dying without a reason. Like there's no reason for them to be alive. I feel very strongly about that in whatever way. It doesn't have to be art, but it could be coding. It could be any sort of creative output that humans get into. For us, it's musical art, visual art that drives us forward. But I do feel very strongly that humans are kind of made for this. We're made to procreate and create. And if you don't partake in one of those things, you're kind of shortchanging your own life, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think not everybody is. I'm not saying I'm more capable of you than other people to do certain kind of things, but I certainly felt for a long time like a nameless void inside myself. It was something like it was like an emptiness of something that I couldn't. I didn't know what it was. I thought I was realized. I thought I had having realization with my, but I needed to explore more things. So by the time I thought about restarting the label, I came to a moment. I told you before I was doing consultant work on digital marketing, and I thought, okay, I'm going to think on a plan A and plan B, because I don't know if this is what I want to do. So maybe I thought, okay, instead of working for myself, maybe I want to go to work again for a company. But thinking about having a boss, and everybody was telling you about your personal strengths. And I was working in digital marketing. It was, what are you going to do? Another blog marketing? What I am strong at, which are my strengths, what I have a deep knowledge on. I'm not saying I have the biggest knowledge on earth about metal, but compared to the average of the people that surrounds me, I can say for a fact, and I respected person from my circle because of that. Um, I made signs on the era in the time that worked and performed really well here, got a really good reception. Um, Even people was paying more price to what I was doing that what myself I pay to myself. If you know what I mean. And the moment it was like a puzzle, and I started thinking, having this kind of dialogue with myself, and say, okay, you have all these strengths. You have been doing music before. You have been have ideas like doing these folks leather patches that more labels have been started doing later. I didn't reinvent the wheel with that, for example, but I always thought, okay, what if I bring this concept of having a patch like the motorcycle clubs? Um, I was working on interior design for many years. I was familiar with fabrics and so on, with embroidery. What if I look for a top-notch embroiderer? The process of doing all these kind of things, the looking for new suppliers, like transfer from reel to whatever format you are using these days, or looking for a papyrus to do this edition, or looking for a sort kind of paper. When I did a Sacrificio cassette tape, the metal cassette tape, it wasn't like there was a cassette case, which was it has to be done from scratch. The factory who made that have never done such a project like that, and I have to chase them. I have to persuade them to make them. It was like a nightmare. It was even more difficult than put the proclamation demo on 6 different formats. But the process of it all is really, really creative. And I totally agree with you. I don't know in the case of other people, I don't know if everybody should create, but in my case, that's a necessity these days. That's something I need. I need to explore my creativity. I think that is, I'm not saying that I'm the best at it, but it makes of me a better version of myself. Um, I know I don't drink alcohol these days. I experimented with drugs eventually back in the past. Uh, I can think on a most stimulant drug today than adrenaline, and when you are doing the stuff that you like, it's like having sex, having good meal. It's something that it's so rewarding that that's one of the main reasons to go. And music is also giving me the same feelings. So I'm also on the other hand thinking that you are you come to an end product, but you come to an end product that m- means a lot to you because you relate to that music. You relate to that. Maybe you discover a band because I didn't know about Nocturne de Manto 10 years ago. I knew about Nocturne de Manto a couple of years ago. But for example, if I think about when I'm doing the Asgarot, I did this and that I was in contact with these guys 27 years ago, and we were on the same label. We were speaking on the phone for hours, and now having done this, even when you contribute with other people, when at the start of this interview, when I send you those sarcophago photos and I saw them on the actual release, I got my copy, and thinking that I was a small grain, on the big mountain that is put in a release like that. Even when I'm cooperating or working with other people, there's people nowadays that is asking me for second opinion, advice, call whatever you want to do certain kind of things. That's also for me a really, really important thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I guess at the end of the day, humans are social beings, and interacting with other people and contributing to other people's creation is also very meaningful. Um, but yeah, I mean, I do really think. I mean, I've thought about this a lot. Creation and procreation. I can't think of anything else that's as meaningful to humans as those two things. You know.
Well, destruction as well.
Right. Yeah, that might be the case. But yeah, I think society partakes in destruction a bit too much. I think people like to tear down other people's creation a bit more than they like to create themselves. And I prefer to interact with people who are creating rather than destroying.
Yeah, I,
Uh,
I was I was being ironic in a way, but because that's the sort kind of dichotomy of our society, you either create or destroy. You have a point there because when you create, what has made humans what they are, for the worst and for the best. Let's stick to the best. We have evolved from other animals because we have this capacity of creating. Because humans, if you compare ourselves to the strength or to the abilities of other animals out there, the ability of humans is inside our heads. The capacity of thinking, of creating, of developing. That's a game changer. Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's part of our DNA. I think on the other hand, maybe you come from a different cultural background because I think the case, for example, of the Asian cultures, Japanese, maybe you have a different kind of respect for tradition or arts or things like that. I wouldn't say in the Western world is different. I think it's a matter, but I think that, for example, in the case of my country, okay, when it comes to the education here, we live in Spain. We live on this welfare kind of system, which is very common. It's different, very different from what is in the US when it comes to education, healthcare, whatever. But when it's come, for example, to education, the paradigm in Spain is totally opposite, for example, what you have in Scandinavia. Okay, why? In the case of Spain, education is something that our politicians use to. They don't build up a long-term project. Okay, they just make a project that lasts for 4 years, and you are not doing that based on what is good for you as a citizen, but what is based on their thoughts. So let's say if you are against abortion, or you are pro-abortion, if you are pro this, pro that, if you are pro-independentist, if you have a national sensitivity different, for example, like we have in certain regions of Spain, like in Basque Country or in Catalonia, okay, then education is like a weapon in the clash between politicians. You know what I mean? So if I if a certain party or an alliance of parties approves a law, okay, which is supposed to last, it won't last because next time there's a change in the government, okay, they're gonna drop it off and build a new one. But this is a 4-8 years kind of project. So what's the problem with that? You are you are not focusing on things which are important. And I tell you for a fact, creation and creative people are not perceived as necessary. It's like yeah, you can create a business, but business have to be creative. It's not only to build up a business. You have to be creative about everything you do because you have to make a difference with what other people is doing.
Mhm.
I think that's a really cultural thing. I don't know if that's one of the reasons because less and less people, not so many people, is doing creative things. On the other hand, I have to tell you, I'm an old school bastard, but I'm also related to technology in the way I use it as a tool to promote the stuff I do. But on the other hand, I think that not being creative these days is you have access to anything. You can Google anything on YouTube and you can learn anything from scratch right away.
Yeah.
I tell you for a fact, I have learned things, how to do things for the record label, about processes of just Googling. And on the other hand, I see more and more people being creative these days because of these digital tools, which for us, which comes from an analog background and releasing analog music, sounds like contradictory. But I think that when you want to evolve, you have to take the best of both worlds.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, just touching on the US system, it's not too different, depending on where you are, the regional education system can be terrible. It can be very much politically charged, or it can be neutral. But either way, it's very regional and it's used by politicians to leverage whatever agenda they have. So education is often weaponized in the US just like anywhere else. I'm not sure if US is any better in terms of creative arts education. I don't think it is. I think maybe some of the freedoms that we enjoy here and the American ethos still runs deep in places like Texas, where I mean, you have to remember this is a very new country, so what we were doing 300 years ago probably has some roots still in the culture, and I feel like there's still a little bit of rebellion left in Texas, even though it's been occupied by people from other states, including myself. Um, but I feel a lot more at home here than I did in California. That's all I can say. It's a lot more free place to be, and yeah, I guess my point is that it doesn't matter too much where you reside. I think what matters is the culture within yourself and within individuals, because I didn't grow up here necessarily. I grew up on the East Coast of Virginia, and before then, I grew up in Japan. But somehow, over the years, I came to this realization that I want my own business, and I want to do my own thing, and I want to be involved in the arts, which probably came from my family's background. They all ended up doing their own thing, and they're not working for anyone else. Um, I'm kind of rambling about this, but I feel like in conclusion, it's what's inside. It's not so much what the government teaches you, but us metalheads, the people who are involved in the underground music scene, there's something inside of us that's driving us forward. It's nothing that was taught. I don't think it's probably something we learned along the way, just being involved in a DIY type of scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons because we came together. It's like you felt you feel like welcome home, or you can feel yourself like in the perfect place to be. No, and that's what I was speaking prior about when I got into metal, and especially about black-handed metal. You, there is a lot of people which is like bunch of nonsense, but the people I respect and I admire about this, the people which is creative, yeah, absolutely. It's like maybe you can get what the best of what you have learned on normal society, but we are living on a parallel society at the same time. It's like living two lives, but you don't have to hide from each other. Or it's not like you are Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's like I'm doing both things and at the same time. The good thing about this kind of music, and I think it's not only about metal, but I think anybody who is able to, yeah, I think rebellion is an important factor, and you have a point over there because when I was saying before that metal has become Disney, that's one of the problems. This music is not meant to be correct. This music is not being. It was an act of rebellion when it started. Its root into rock music, be in the early late 50s, early 60s, because the bands from the 80s got inspired by for the 70s, and so did the bands from the 70s from the Afro musicians that were starting doing rock and roll back in the 50s and so on. But to confront the authority, to confront what's faith. I think for example, in the case of religion, that's a really important thing. I'm not saying I'm not a practice Satanist myself, not a Luciferian in the sense of practicing, but when it comes to the philosophy of the whole thing, it's been absolutely inspiring in the sense of working on you as an individual, thinking on you as an individual. Um, the metaphor of not being one with oh, I forgot the word when you have a lot of animals, I don't know, but you don't it's like the Dio song. You don't have to be, you don't want to be the last in line. You just want to be out of the line. You don't want to be on the top of the line. You want to be on your own line. I think it's not about fitting in the world, but creating your own path and trying to walk that path. When you are doing that, you can along and across people, which is like you or more or less like you. Then you interact. Then you go have this sort kind of connections, and the network that the underground creates between same like-minded individuals could be really really strong. Sometimes I connect with people into this. The people I like to connect to speak, I like to speak with some people just about music, but there is people I connect. I have deeper connections which are not just about music. Music connected us, but the things we speak about, or how can I enrich my vision with their perspectives, are I'm not the kind of person who is looking for safe conversations. Okay, I like to confront, and it's not like I like to argue or to have a debate, but I like to dialogue, and I'm a person which listens to a lot. I speak a lot, of course, that's true, as you can see, but I also tend to have the tendency to speak a lot and to be quiet when I have to be quiet, and I like to listen to different opinions for a fact. Even sometimes I do some research about political stuff or things that are yeah, or actual or religious, and I try to listen to different points and make out my own vision. But but this network that exists out there, it's a fact. Yes, metal has made I brought many things good to my life.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the thing that bugs me the most about today's scene is that within the scene there are people trying to police ideas, police imagery, put guardrails on what's supposed to be what's supposed to not fit into the mold of regular society. We created this because we were not fitting into regular society, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, the norms and the guardrails set by society is something that we don't really work within. Yet these newcomers that are coming into the scene, they're trying to put exactly those guardrails into metal of all types, especially black metal and death metal. I just feel like that's the wrong approach, and you're, these people who are involved in that kind of activity are not really contributing to the creation of this scene at all. All they're doing is destroying. And that's something that we discussed earlier is people take, I said creation and procreation gives meaning to life, but actually destruction also gives people meaning because they have this idea that, okay, this thing is bad. We have to destroy it. And they put all
It's
their
easier
energy.
to destroy. It's easier to destroy
Oh, yeah,
than
of
to
course.
create.
It's always the case, in any sort of endeavor, be it something not tangential like record labels or whatever, it could be just ideas. It's easier to tear down ideas than to come up with your own ideas. It's always easier to destroy monuments than to erect new monuments. It's much easier to destroy leaders than to be a leader yourself. So that's why people partake in this destruction ritual that I think is very childish, and it might be necessary in some instances, but for the most part, I think it's unnecessary, and it's just the easy way out for a lot of people to find meaning in life.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to go. No, when you are facing a personal, you're facing a personal problem, or we all have ups and downs in our lives. Thing is how you approach them. Okay, sometimes maybe something struck you in a way that is difficult for you to react almost instantly. But sometimes you can foresee in the future with some perspective. Um, you need you need you need to be courageous and need to be brave to make a change of your life, to create, to contribute to something, to help to somebody. Whatever you are going to do, which is going to be proactive, needs from you strength, needs from you courage. Um, I think the easiest way is to be a critic about everything. To criticize everything. I remember in the last days of the Nuclear War Now forum that I was starting to see a change in the mentality of many of the people. That was right. At least that was my view, and I was thinking there is something changing here. Of course it wasn't you, but it was like the sign of what's coming. Because the nuclear war now forum for many years was like the place to go. It was like, I remember the first year, this was like amazing. Of course, you will always have trolls or whatever. But I remember in the beginning, and I tell you for a fact, I was never active in any other forums or on any other social media, because I've been working on social media for years. I work the socials for the label, but I don't use for me personally at all. Okay,
Mm.
I need to distance myself from that. I know how toxic they are, and I don't want to be a part of the debate. And I don't even want to witness how people read each other's apart, because having fun, because some people needs confrontation, and needs fight, and needs all this negativity to make their lives being worth. And I'm not going to be to contribute to that in any way. And I think that in the last year, the problem nowadays is that it's even more easier and easier to destroy, to blown away what other people do. Those maybe I don't like what other people do, but with the years, I have learned to see things with a different approach. Maybe I don't condone with your ideas. Maybe I don't like what you do. Maybe I don't like the music you like. But I at least I try to see if there is value on what you are doing. I'm gonna tell you for an example. When I did the Death Christ box set on cassette, which was the Tawfiq from Zombie Downs did the vinyl, so I did this cassette, which is like a fold-out. I knew a gal which was 20. I heard about this gal who was 22 or 23 years old, and between another girl of that age, I know, and she was speaking me about this girl that was buying limited editions of K-pop bands from Korean pop bands, and they were what people who is buying limited editions of records, buying thousands of records for. I have to know this. Okay, that's what my thought. I didn't thought myself that this is gonna be shit. Of course, that is like fast food music, which is made in a factory. You put 5, 6 good-looking guys or girls on a band, incredible image, and everything like that. But I spoke to this girl and say, okay, could you show me the limited edition of the records to have the boxes and so on? Of course, the aesthetics have nothing to do with what we do. But from a creative standpoint of view, what I saw was mind blowing. Okay, okay. I was. It was like, okay. Why not to know what's out? What instead of saying that this is pure garbage, you don't take a close look about things. So that's the way I try to approach things. But the problem is that anybody is jumping nowadays on the internet, social media, and whatever you are gonna do, there's always people saying whatever. You are going always to have critics. You are going to have trolls, and then sometimes you post a photo and say poser or looks stupid, look ridiculous, or this man's. And I don't answer in all these comments, but from time to time I'm saying, what's the point of wasting your time about something you don't fucking care?
Yeah, but I mean that's what I think that's part of the destruction ritual is that they want to tear you down so that they can get validation for their existence or something. They
Yeah,
find meaning in that kind of behavior. And those are the beta males and beta females out there who partake in that kind of bullshit activity. Unfortunately, society makes it very easy for them to have a voice because of social media.
absolutely.
Yeah. But the good thing is, I just flip it around. If I'm getting criticism, if I'm getting shit from people, it means that I'm getting enough attention. And
Yeah,
that means that marketing is working to some extent and people are paying attention enough to talk shit. So that's the flip side of the coin is if you're getting criticized and you're doing something of worth criticizing, right? So as long as you don't internalize whatever bullshit you're saying, I mean, sometimes once in a blue moon, one of these people will make a point that I sort of agree with. So, it's not without any merit. I think everyone is worthy of criticism. All of us do stuff and we should be criticized. It just depends on who's criticizing, I think. If it's just some troll out to destroy you for whatever reason, pay no attention. But if it's somebody that you respect on some degree, then you should listen. I think there are always room for criticism, and I guess my point is that so I tend to read almost all the criticisms. I try not to internalize them or lose sleep over them. I've learned how to kind of box them and put them away in my head so I'm not bothered by them. Because it's almost like a daily occurrence if you're in the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other hand, if you are going to do something which is public, so you're going to share something and you are going to expose yourself, you have first lesson you have to learn is that you can have a thin skin. You are going to be, and because you are people is going to criticize yourself, and maybe some people may be right about certain aspects. For example, if you are doing a record as an artist and you think you have put all your hard work into it, hours, money on the studio, record cover, and for whatever the reason the production sucks, because that kind of stuff happens all the time,
Right.
you are going to you are going to accept the reality because sometimes you put all your time, effort, all the best of you. Maybe you even have talk, and even so, shit happens.
Yeah.
How many of your releases you have worked non-stop on them and something got screwed up or for whatever the reason?
Hmm.
And if something is wrong, you have to accept that. If you are going to do something, you have to know also that not everybody is going to like them, and you have to make a difference. When I read, if I'm going to go to a hotel or to a restaurant and I'm reading the reviews, I'm not. I read the good and the bad reviews, and if I'm going through the bad reviews, I can state a difference between which ones are just frustrated people that are throwing shit at the owner of that business because whatever issue is going on is going wrong on their lives, versus with somebody who is making a solid opinion on solid facts. So I don't see the point. I don't have a problem with being people critic. I don't necessarily think that anything I'm releasing is going to appeal to everybody. Uh, and I think you have to have some distance from it. I think it hasn't been that different. That's part of the human nature. But as you will say, it's like you are having a speaker when you have social media. So everybody have a voice right now. So it's more evident now. But I think most important thing is to focus on to do what you like, to follow your gut instinct. To follow your instinct, I think is really really important. And I also think that it's important to be open to have conversations with people which can teach you stuff. Don't be a self arrogant. Okay, you can be adamant about your opinions, about your views, about whatever. But if you, for example, have got more expertise than I have running a label, I can ask you for advice. And I'm not going to be anything less because of that. I'm asking people who is much younger than me about their opinions about music, about things that I'm releasing, because maybe I'm losing something in translation. One of the things I hate the most is when people say, "Oh, because you and me are the same age, we know everything." You don't have having age. It doesn't. It's not a synonym of knowledge at all.
Right. Yeah, that reminds me. I often have to say no to bands about certain ideas because I feel like over the course of 24 years, I've learned certain things, like a band approached me recently. Their logo was just a font that's been stretched in Photoshop. And I told them that's just gonna taint your cover. It's just a bad idea. Don't do it. And I almost got to the point where I said, I will not release it if you do this.
Of course.
Sometimes I have to step back and say, this is not my creation. I'm just selling it. But at the same time, I know so much more about this kind of stuff just from working in the scene for a very long time. And I know I have my own visual aesthetic that I want to convey to the world. At what point do you think we're stepping over the line as record label owners?
Yeah, that was I was just going to ask you the same thing. I don't like to interfere at all with what a band does. I think a band should have um, creative freedom, because if one of the things that this music and the underground step out of the system, as we were stating earlier, is because that you want to go in a different direction. You have a different vision. So that's not what, for example, you have like you are working for a major label, or even some of the biggest independent labels are putting so much pressure on their musicians. You have to record this single, you have to do this, you have to play this festival, you have to do that. I think that I'm never going to say about, oh, you have to change that kind of music, you should do this. No, maybe maybe I could, if they ask me their opinion, I'm going to give them my opinion about certain kind of things. So I pretty much have become to the point that I would prefer not to release something I'm not comfortable with, even if I say I have not come to that point yet, but I have been approached or been in talk with bands lately that I'm not going to release their stuff. Because, for example, one of the things I normally do when I'm going to work with a band, which is putting new music. Okay, not because if you are reissuing something, you know what has been the background, their background. But when you don't, I like to speak face to face by then, even if it's by video call, so I can have a glimpse of if we are on the same league. We don't have to be like two drops of water alike, identical. No, we don't have to be copycats. But I need to see that there is a connection, a mutual respect between each other. Okay. So, for example, when we did the Decay, Kaisao, and Cemetery Lights album, I will say that they did the music, but I was really bringing ideas into the table about how we can make the release better. But I was never interfering with their music. It was like an open dialogue for me, and that's also a really good part of the part. I enjoy that quite a lot. That's the same when bands are recording stuff and they say, "Oh, I have an advanced track, or I have a demo of the album, but it's with programmed drums. Maybe later we do this that." I had, for example, I think of the Sacrificio album, Guerra Eterna, I have like 4 different versions. The band was sending me over to listen to, and I have then record like they're going to do a box set of that someday. But listen to that progression, it's something really, really important for me. So I don't like to step on the band's toes about what the music should be. I prefer to step aside if at some point there is something that I don't condone with musically or aesthetically. I try. Do you have more margin to do things with one band, with bands, with certain kind of bands? Because some bands have a real specific view on what they want and what they want to do. So it's not that easy. On the other hand, you're not going to change anything. It's preferable not to work with them on that release. Sometimes are more open. Bands are more open. Sometimes bands, I don't know your case. I guess so, of course, because. But sometimes bands say, "Tell me, what do you think about this?" And throwing out ideas. Sometimes it's like brainstorming. You bring stuff into the table, Maybe we can do something good together. But musically, I'm never going to interfere with anything about the band. If they ask me about an opinion, for example, Crucifixions the other day sent me two versions of the mix of the album and told me which one do you like best, and I told them which one I like the most. So yeah, but I like to give people free creative freedom. But that also happens to me not only with labels. For example, working with graphic designers, I'm really specific about what I want with layouts. Really, I spend a lot of time doing. I'm not good at designing, but I'm good at ideas. And I spend time doing drafts. Okay, maybe I go to Canvas or Photoshop and do a rock, like a really rock version. But I would like the elements be here, or I would like to do this triptych or do this or that. But on the other hand, I tell the designer, okay, this is my briefing, because I also used to write a briefing about what I want. I wouldn't want. But if you come up with something which make this better, feel free to do it. Maybe I will follow your approach. Maybe I won't. Maybe we'll find ourselves something in the middle, or maybe an even better idea can arise from everything like that. That's the way I work with everybody, be it bands or graphic designers or even people suppliers. I'm open to this sort kind of discussion, because I think worst thing you can do working in a creative environment is to put a lash on people.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I follow the same exact protocol as you when it comes to graphic design. I usually come up with the overall vision for how it's going to look. But then my graphic designer, usually Dan Freed, um, puts it together, and sometimes he'll come out with better ideas. And I think
Absolutely.
we have a pretty good working relationship now because he knows the type of layouts I like, and he understands, like, all right, Yosuke tends to like inserts with this much margin around the edges, and there are certain rules that I follow with graphic design. But going back to what you said about not interfering with bands' audio, that's definitely the case with me as well. I try not to interfere at all on the musical creation side. Where I tend to put my foot down is more on the visual side, and I'm with you. If I get to the point where I'm just butting heads with the band over the visual aesthetic, I might just say, okay, this project is just not for me. You have
Yep.
to take this somewhere else and release it on a different label, because I have certain visual aesthetics that I just don't want to deal with, like overly Photoshop covers. That's a no-no for me. I tend to hate those, and um I let certain things slide over the years just because the band was very adamant about it, and it was just one release of many releases that I was doing. So there are certain things that I sort of regret over the years that I let slide through the cracks. And sometimes this happens when I work with other record labels, because it's a 50-50 project. So I can't always just put my foot down and say, you got to go with my graphic designer or my visual aesthetic. Sometimes when you combine forces with another label and release something together, you sort of have to compromise on the visual side. Um, and yeah, some of those are regrets that I have over the years. But at the end of the day, it's the music got out there, and nothing looks like a behemoth record. So I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, it makes total sense. The more people you get into the picture, normally the more difficult it gets. It also depends with bands. In my case, if I'm working on different versions, because sometimes you have like two, three things you may think you may work for a layout or a design or a prototype or for a packaging or something like that. I I learned with the time, and I learned not only with bands, but also when I was working on marketing, that you cannot. involve people in all the steps of the process,
Mhm.
because sometimes people get drunk, to say it so, if you get what I mean. No, they get dizzy. um Sometimes you have to show them, or maybe you have to find who is the best person or the individual on a band, to have a communication with, and he acts like a filter. Because I've realized, even with bands, sometimes they clash between themselves about ideas, because everybody's starting having ideas. And normally in bands you have a creative force. Maybe sometimes the guy who is good with the visuals is not the songwriter, for example. Sometimes you have this kind of people which overall the whole thing. But you have to speak with the person who was able to make decisions, and maybe you work with him and he's not showing the band all the process, until maybe he's just showing them phases of the process. It's not like you are hiding information, but you are not trying to make all the whole process a mess, because there's so many opinions involved, if you know what I mean. In the end, it is the art. But sometimes I have been speaking with bands, for example, in a video call, there are three members, because you speak with one member for the initial contact, and people is starting throwing ideas. And I always say that there is no bad idea. Okay, there's no bad idea, because maybe you can. I welcome people to bring ideas in and to put them into the table. But a bad idea is a bad idea in the end. You know what I mean.
Right.
Sometimes, about when you are brainstorming, you can bring something good, or something that is not that good, but it has to come about of the combination of different things.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with having too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll be working with a band and they're two strong-minded members, and you show one person something and the other person disagrees and they get shut down. I really don't like those situations because it's really makes the process drag out a lot longer than it should. And it's much cleaner for record labels like us to be working with just one creative person rather than multiple. It's even worse when you have like, you know, an entire band involved,
Yeah.
more than two people involved in the decision making. It just takes forever, and they start nitpicking this or that. And so yeah, I'm going through one of those right now where I got two band members that I have to communicate with in parallel, and sometimes one will respond and the other one will be silent, and then that silent person just comes like 5 days later with ideas or change requests, and I have to go back to the graphic designer and change things and then show again, and it just the entire process just takes much longer. So yeah, I think I agree with you. It's better to work one-on-one with somebody. um I try to communicate that to bands, tell them at the beginning of the cycle that I want just one point person if possible. Usually that's the case because there's usually a band lead. Not everyone in the band likes to deal with this kind of production level stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes the process easier. And I think, like everything else in life, you have to know which are your strengths. There is people who is more talented about certain kind of things, and I think that is always good to have the ability to delegate tasks and that kind of people. There's people with strong visions. There's times when you cannot do things. For example, you work with a brand like Proclamation, and maybe you have it has to go through the three members. Okay, the good thing is that they have a common vision, but it's not like unitary. But in the end, it's easier, because what they like. You are close to them somehow. We have similar backgrounds and so on. but sometimes the process can end up being a nightmare. I had came to the process last year with a certain project. I have to retouch with it, but it was being very difficult for me with the member, because I was bringing a lot of ideas into the table. It was a really creative release. It was my idea to, and he was agree with that. I brought a lot of put a lot of time, wrote a creative team to do stuff. Um, it ended up being like a stuck situation in the sense that the band member couldn't bring anything. I don't like this. Okay, no problem. I get it. You don't have to like all that and offering on or bringing to a table, but say try to put yourself. Okay, try to give an alternative. It was like silence. It was like, no, just give it another twist. It makes no sense to work like that. It's like with graphic designers. One of the things I like to give about this briefing or sort of draft is because it's not the same working from zero for a graphic designer, even if he's used to work with you, than having a basis to build upon, to build on. It's really different, and especially if you want to do something which is non-generic. If you are doing something like, you can give the same visual treatment to a South American recording from the 80s to black metal's band from Norway or Sweden or whatever. Yeah, and I see graphic design is a really important thing, because the aesthetics of the bands of the records, maybe for some people it may sound superficial, but on the other hand, I started buying records when you went to a record in the 80s, at a record store in the 80s. You bought the record by its cover, mainly. It was your point of connection with the band. And up to this day, that's what maybe I think one of the reasons, because labels like me, yours, for example, I think other record labels we have some of the strongest visuals is Iron Pegasus, forever, because we are thinking about those times. That's where our roots come from. You can deal with music, or the visuals of music like something generic. It has to be something specific.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So I think we're coming up on the tail end of our conversation. Um, I asked this to some people that I talked to. You've been in this game for what, like 30 plus years, right? At this point, going back
Third,
years,
I've 37 years. Well,
37.
yeah, well, listening to metal for 37 years. No, no, sorry. Yes, 37, yeah, 37 years. And
Yeah,
I've been involved in the underground since 1992, which is 32 years.
yeah, yeah. So we're pretty much like neck to neck on metal history. Now, in those 30 plus years, what's changed for you? Like, what have you learned over those 32 years that, I mean, you must have learned a lot, but I guess pick one that you want to tell the younger generation. It could be anything, any lessons learned through metal.
I think the most important thing, and I learned this through my parents. Not that because they taught me,
Yeah.
but because they accept what I do. My mother passed away 2 years ago. I remember my father, not now, but several years ago. We were speaking to somebody when I was working with them, and he told him, "Oh, my grandson is into hip hop and wherever, and he's crazy about it, but it's gonna pass." And my father told him, "You never know. Look at him. My son started with this when he was 12, and this should happen what 15 years ago. I'm telling you this, and I'm pretty much the same. If you like this, just follow your what you like. Don't fall in the game of feeling like a victim, and be a leader of whatever you want to do. This music is going to give you much joy because music makes magic with your chemicals in your inner chemistry. It can give you so many things, but it has been like a parallel university for me, like going to college, but for many things. I have come across so many incredible individuals because of music. Also, I have known a lot of senseless people, big heads, and whatever. But some of the most important people in my life, I have known them because of music. I found myself I am what I am because of this music, and not because it makes me, because it was like my partner. It came with me in the good and the bad moments. It was like it was a focus with me, and I never had the same kind of focus on my life. But it was like was it like a life worth? I wouldn't say so, but it was like something that put me tight in many aspects. It helped me to explore my creative side, which is one of the things that makes my life full. Um, so yeah, that's one of the things I think I've learned the most. It's so many things, it's 30 plus years, so I can tell you for different kind of stories and anecdotes and whatever. But it brought me here, and I'm telling you, I'm sure it happens to you as well. When I'm speaking to other people about what I'm doing, even if when it's not people related to metal, it causes a lot of admiration. Not in the sense because you are, it's not only selling millions of euros, but I don't need that much. But the fact that people is more amazed about the fact that you are doing what you like than that you are actually doing music, that you have the courage to go and chase your dreams, and that's really, really important, because most of the people out there is doing stuff and things in their lives they don't like. So music is which has brought me here. It made me ask me a question 5 years ago when I said I want to return with the label, because I returned with the label officially 2 years ago in 2000 in 2020 in 2022, after a 6 year time which it was on hold because all the things I was going on with my work and the changes I was doing in my life and them. But I make myself a question, and that question led me to what has been my passion my entire life. And I think passion is what should be the main force for anybody's life. Try to follow your passion wherever it is. It will make you happy 100%, but it will make you a stronger, and will make a better version of you, and it will be the closer you could be to being happy.
Yeah, it might not make you rich, but at least you'll be
Yeah,
satisfied with your life. You can sleep better at night, and you'll look forward to going to work in the morning. That's how I see it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I had more money when I was doing my previous works.
yeah,
I will buy more records. I go to more festivals. All the money I'm making today is going back to the label.
yeah,
It's going to do the same work. Of course, I try to make it sustainable, and I would like to buy more records, but there's more important things for me right now. Yes, the feeling of doing what you like, even in the worst of days, because I have bad days, of course.
yeah,
Not every day is perfect running a label, but even so, I compare them to my old jobs, my bad days back then, and they win, knockout,
yeah. I mean,
new life.
I remember sitting through corporate meetings where they're just throwing out corporate jargon and just thinking to myself, my soul is slowly leaking out of my body.
Yeah,
You know? And when I come to work in the morning with the NWN, I feel like my soul is getting recharged every time. I feel like this is the calling in life, and my calling is to curate music, and that's just how it goes. I think we're on the same wavelength, Daniel. I really appreciate this conversation. It was a long one, but I think we got into a lot of different topics, and it should be interesting for other people to listen to, especially younger people who aren't so familiar with your background.
Well, thank you very much, Jessica, for having me. It has been really a pleasure. I think my microphone went dead, but yeah, after being following your steps ever since, it's really an honor for me to be here, having the chance to speaking about what we like, speaking to others about what I do. So anybody who feels inspired by this conversation or by any of the conversations you are having through your podcast with other individuals, I just can say other people to follow their path, because that's what this music is all about, and that's the way of the left hand path. Do what you will.
How can people contact you if they want to talk to you?
They can reach me through the website. Actually, well, you have to fill a form over there. Maybe most efficient thing these days is going through the socials. We are active on Facebook, Instagram. The website is Down with the Most Hike Productions. Well, downwiththemosthike.com, but well, if you Google it, you will find it. Mostly through our socials. You can reach us up there, send us a DM message, and I will try to do my best to reply people if they have any further questions. Yeah, if you have a band, if you want and you want to get signed, you better sign a physical copy of your record. I get tons of email links every day, like every record label. I am telling you for a fact that that doesn't work anymore.
No, that doesn't work. The only way that I will listen to stuff like that is if somebody like you or a good friend of mine sends it to me and says, listen to it. Otherwise, I will not. If
Yeah.
somebody just, it, if somebody sends me, um, the worst is when somebody sends me a DM over Instagram and they're like, can you release this record? I'm like, no. Just instant delete when that happens. I saw that post you made on, oh,
You,
I think your headphone is slowly dying. Maybe it's
yeah,
at,
yeah, they're back.
yeah. Well, very, very, very last question for you. This is something that I've always been thinking about. We're kind of like the elder statesmen of the scene now. We're getting up in age. What do you think the average age is now? Do you think
Oof.
the metalheads are getting older and older, and like there aren't enough new generation coming in?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think the average is about 40,
Do you
40,
think
40
so?
plus. Yeah.
I hope it's not 40.
Sorry? You think it's even more?
No, I'm thinking it's a little bit young. Maybe it's 30 something is
But
maybe
but 30 plus, I think, in that
30
case.
plus. Yeah, probably 30 plus, just because there are more people our age and older who are diehards than younger people who are diehards. I think that's probably the case. Although my worker Justin is a crazy diehard. He's only 26.
Thing is that maybe there is different. I'm telling you, half of the customers I have are from the US. Okay, these days, and I can't tell you how many customers I have from the area of Texas. A lot, a
Yeah,
lot. Um, I think maybe that's different over there, because I think because the scene is different, because the whole year you are with Mexico, because
right.
that's a strong country when it comes to metal. But for example, in Spain, I attended to my major metal festival like a month ago. I share an stall with another vendor. It wasn't planned on the agenda, but it was something that he offered me in the last minute because his partner couldn't attend. So we came over that together. For example, for you to give you a clue, Judas Priest was headlining, and the street metal bands that were playing that day were a Carcass or Emperor or Napalm Death, okay, or a Marduk. So I was blown away because of the average of the age of the people. And I will tell you for what it was closer to plus to 40 plus than. Of course, it was it was all metal. Okay, it was not just black death metal. But I don't see here that much people who is at younger age. You know, I go to shows. I must go to every show that is happening here in Madrid, and I see young people, but I don't see like a really great or big regeneration.
Yeah, I guess it's
So
a country specific thing because at least in the US, there's a pretty big group of, I guess, Mexican Americans or Latin Americans who are into extreme metal. That's most of the scene actually in the US, I think. I think that's not an exaggeration, especially in places like Los Angeles or Oakland or Texas, any city in Texas. I think you're gonna see more Latin Americans from mostly Mexico, but probably other countries as well. Um, and yeah, and they tend to be younger. They're not, they're not oldies like us. So
yeah, yeah. The younger people I see are from Latin America because you know we have a lot of Latin American immigration here in Spain from all over the countries, Ecuador, Peru, Colombia. Not so many people from Mexico, but especially from South America.
mm,
And the younger people, yes, they are from South America. But even so, I don't feel the scene here so strong, and it's getting it's having this sort kind of regeneration. So maybe I don't know what we will face in 10 years or so, but the proportion is, I think it's not the same. Maybe what I'm seeing, for example, on socials, when I'm seeing shows in other countries, like yeah, I think it's a different and we have a lot of people from Latin America here in Spain because of the language, you know, because of the historical connection, because of the migratory streams that have been happening during the last 25 years plus here in Spain. But I think maybe labels like us will have a problem in 10 years or so.
yeah,
When
maybe.
when
I think we're peddling old people's music now. We're not. I think what's popular right now is death metal. Like they call it old school death metal, but
yeah.
it's new school death metal to me. That's what's popular right now. And since we're not really pushing that kind of stuff, yeah, we might be in trouble financially in 10 years. Who knows? I think our jobs now is to curate music that we like and try to get the younger people into it. And that's a challenge in itself. Maybe we have to be making videos on TikTok or something. I don't know. Maybe we're
I
on the
don't know. I think another one of the things that I think that is one of the problems with metal, and I say this all the time, is that the fact that this music is not dangerous anymore. You think about what happened in Norway in the early 90s.
right.
It was the sense of danger. It brought an incredible amount of attention. There was loads of musical talent. That you can never deny that.
Yeah.
But that combination, so much musical talent, so many bands doing, because you think of the first wave of Norwegian bands recording in the same studio and doing so different studios records which were so different from each other, recorded by the same producer. That
Right.
wasn't Morrison. Peyton was a fucking master, was fucking master, and
Right.
so were the bands. But the fact that all that surrounded that was what connected with a lot of young people. And you know what? That's one of the reasons because hip hop music is grabbing so much attention from younger generations because the feel of danger, you may like the music or not, but the attitude they portray connects much more with the younger audiences because when you are young you are a rebel, you want to burn the world down, and that's not what you are getting with this political correct black death metal. You are not what you are getting with this Disney new heavy metal, with harmonies and music which is driven by keyboards instead of sharp guitars and pounding drums and chains and gutfuck bass lines. That's total difference. So maybe I think that's one of the reasons, but maybe I don't know. Music goes in cycles, but you never know.
Yeah, yeah, maybe we need to go kill more people or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that you need like a cathartic movement. So something was n- everything that is so influential happens for a reason. And death metal prior to that, even to what happened in Norway and so on, even death metal was so huge in the early 90s.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe the bands from Norway were criticizing them, and many of them were actually death metal bands prior to that, and they were having fun and whatever you wanted. But growly music and striking vocals are people is get used to that. The other day I was in this festival, this major festival, in between one of the times I went to have a rest. Avantasia was playing, and you had this singer, which is a female, which is singing like extreme melodic lines, really operistic, and all of a sudden she twists into a growling voice. So that's useful. That maybe one of the things that this music, or the problems, is that we haven't known how to. We like to stick to our guns. We like to be old school. We don't like our bands to change, but there haven't been any sort kind of evolution. They haven't been no repulsive in the music for so long. Maybe we need to find a way, or maybe. But I think it's nothing. I think that's something that happens organically. So if it doesn't happen, it will end up dying. Like, for example, the rockabilly culture is dying. How many people you less see and less and less people into um, 50s rock and roll music. You don't because they are disappearing. They are getting older. So it's more and more. I think it's more and more like a sort kind of niche thing. It's sad because the world we knew is fading away, and I'm not really optimistic about that. But
Yeah,
let's hope.
underground black death metal is always backwards looking. We're always looking into the past for inspiration because there's really, I don't know, I feel like it's always built on the foundation of the past, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. Like you said, the progress happens much more slowly, but when it does happen fairly quickly. Like what we saw with um, the Norwegian black metal first wave or second, whatever you want to call it. That distinct sound came about very quickly once it happened. Maybe something like that will happen again, but I don't really. I'm not holding my breath because we live in a globalized society where regional incubation doesn't really happen anymore. That
Yeah,
Norwegian phenomenon, the Brazilian phenomenon, the Greek phenomenon, the Czech phenomenon. There's so many different styles that went the way of dinosaurs because of globalization. I had the same exact conversation with Tawfiq when we had a podcast discussion. And I am still of the same opinion that it won't happen again because of globalization. It will be extremely difficult to organically create that kind of petri dish. There's no such thing because the entire world is one petri dish now.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree. I think one of the saddest thing you have is you look at the South American scene nowadays, and South America and the bands are sounding like North American or European, and
Yeah.
their magic was the uniqueness, and that uniqueness is lost because your focus is to sound tight, to sound perfect, to sound um you're not looking through with your own perspective. You are looking through a global perspective, as you say. For example, what happens with sarcophago? They listen to Sodom and brought that into the new level.
Right. Yeah, and then
They-
after
they-
that, they listened to Morbid Angel and they became kind of like a Morbid Angel type of band. And
yeah,
that was a very sad moment in metal history, I think. I like Lord of the Scourge just fine,
me
but
too.
I like Inri a lot more. Inri sounds like something very unique. It doesn't sound like anything else that came before. It was a formation where it took like this big leap forward. It was Sodom, Hellhammer, Destruction, but then it took a huge leap. Like it
Absolutely.
doesn't sound like any of those bands. It just sounds like Sarcophago. They created something out of nothing, and that will never happen again. Maybe I'll. I mean, I want it to happen, but I don't. I don't think that the conditions are such that it can happen again because of globalization. Everything is homogenized. We live in a very gray world now with the internet. Internet just basically made everything equal, and for great art to be created, things don't need to be equalized across the entire world. I think the best type of art comes from hardships and difficulties and difficult
Absolutely.
political and
Y- y-
socioeconomic situations. Look at
Absolutely. Eastern Europe, black
yeah,
metal, and is the same kind of thing. Of course, you have Norway and Sweden in the 90s. It was a different paradigm because they were rich societies, but it was a moment of collision. It was a moment of transition between some music. Some in Seattle they created grunge, but some crazy some crazy musicians in Scandinavia, which were like the richest countries of all Europe, were being disruptive, were going against the system. Sometimes it's impossible, in a world like in a globalized world today that to happen. And I totally agree with you. Um, for much I respect the band for their career and so on. For example, I'm gonna give you an example. When Massacre from Colombia recorded last year Requiem.
oh, that was not good.
Sorry, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it because that record was pure perfection. Uh, Maybe those are perfect accidents. Or Inri was a perfect accident. It was impossible. Recording an album of a style that didn't exist or almost didn't exist back then in 1987, and to record and to achieve such a sound is like an accident, but that's a perfect accident, and perfect accidents happen in such situations when you are trying to have everything under control, like it's happening now, because you are having the tools for everything. You have the
Right.
tools for layout, recording, equipment. You are trying to do something perfect. You are not doing something organic anymore. So it's really really difficult that anything can spawn from there. So I
Yeah.
totally agree with you.
Yeah, I think the perfect example is Massacre and maybe the re-recording of classic Sepultura albums by the Calavera brothers. I think those were total mistakes. Why would you re-record perfect albums? I mean, you're just
I can guess I can guess there are different. I agree in both cases. I can think that the reasons behind that are different. Maybe the case of Massacre is bad because they felt that way. In my case, my favorite death metal band from South America is Mortem. Okay, but my favorite, but I think in Requiem for me is the equal to death metal in South America to Inri.
yeah,
Sound wise, that feeling of oppression, that's the sound of death. Even if Morten is my favorite death metal band from South America. In the case of Sepultura Cavalera, I can think about, well, these things that go behind the scenes in the record business,
I'm
that
sure
you
it's
have
just
to pay
legal.
royalties, who own rights, who doesn't own rights. When
Yeah,
you have two factions of the bands, I can see that. But it's a total nonsense. It's a total and it's a total nonsense seeing Max Cavalera nowadays wearing armbands full of spikes and crossed bullet belts. We have been seeing him on a jumpsuit, singing in dirty dreadlocks forever in the last 20
right.
years.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's one thing for them to just play the songs. It's their songs, so yeah, so be it. You play
Yeah,
live, and I'll go see it. I'll probably enjoy it. But to re-record something is just, I don't know. I just see it as like an offense to the underground or something. It's like saying the previous versions were no good, so listen to this newly recorded digital version of the albums or something.
yeah, yeah. And you have the band saying, okay, this is our music, we can do what we want. This is, you know, it's sad, for example, what happened to a band like Dark Throne, well, in my opinion, you know. Yeah, yeah, you can follow your way. It's your band, do whatever you want with it. But it's like, it's not like you're not only recording the music you want. It's like, this is my music, this is my career. I want to, but you create something so special and a mystique about your band, which was so different. A band who achieved such a success without even playing live. I can only think of the examples of Bathory and Burston, of course,
Yeah.
but they had an incredible attitude in the 90s with what they were doing, having almost no interviews, and you could like them more or less, but their attitude was incredible. See what they have become, the phenomenon they have become. I don't want to get personal into any of what they members, but you know, it's like I think it's really clownish what we are seeing now. And the sad thing for me is that people is embracing this like it's the ultimate kind of thing, you know. I think it's easier in life to take this music like non seriously than that taking and taking instead of taking like a fucking joke. It's easier, you know. It's like I don't get it. I don't get the point. And I don't think
They
it's gonna get
probably
any better.
they probably forgot what this music is about at some point. And at that point, they should have probably changed the logo because the sound changed so much. Then again, if I were to play the devil's advocate, they started out playing death metal and then they started playing black metal. And, they had some weird albums like Goat Lord where it didn't sound like neither black metal or death metal. Um, Fenris was doing Isengard on the side, Neptune Towers or whatever. There were a lot of different things they were doing. I guess when it comes down to it, it's their choice to do whatever the fuck they want. I don't have to listen to it.
No, of course, absolutely, absolutely. No, that's the point. And I came to a point that I couldn't care less more. I couldn't care less about any of these kind of things, you know. Um, Many of these bands are having most of them are having an incredible flow of revenue because of record sales, reissues, and playing festivals for insane amounts of money they never expected, you know. Oh, I can get it. That's your music, that's your art, and you are good. You deserve to get paid for that and to get the profit. You are the one who created that. I think that's not uncompatible with respecting your legacy.
Yeah. Well, I think with that we will end the session.
Yes.
The outro took a long time to finish, but I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much again for your time, Daniel. And I'll put all of your links at the bottom of the YouTube video so people can click on it and get to your website and your Instagram page and whatever. Any final words for the listeners?
Well, thank you very much for your time, Yusuke. I really appreciate that. Always have been a fan of your working ethos. That's something that many people may see that the label has become really big, but nothing has give you anything. So congratulations for being there after nearly 25 years, which it's a lot of time. Thank you very much for everybody who has took the time to listen to this. Not just support my label, just support anybody out there that is making something for this music, who is being creative Most important of it, that is showing the due respect and the true values, the foundations this music is all about. That's the most important thing. You and me will be gone, but the legacy of this music will last forever.
Yep. Okay, well, with that, we'll end the session. Thank you very much again, Daniel.
Thank you very much. It's okay.
Bye.